All right, Saagar, what's on your radar?
Well, something I am dreading the most about a potential Joe Biden win for the presidency is that the city I live in, have chosen to make my profession, will return to normal. Now, for most who live here, that's a real sigh of relief. Everybody knows how to live, how to make money, and posture with a neoliberal Democrat. The think tank industrial complex, they churn out white papers, and they serve as a training ground for people to go into the administration. The Republicans, at best, put up a controlled opposition where they always lose, but at least they get paid. And still, the people who will really celebrate, though, that's the media. You see, while the Trump administration has been a boon to the media for ratings, Trump and the people he brought to Washington are not Washington people. Now, many of them are not the non-Washington people I would have liked to have seen in government, but fundamentally, the people who held the most power in the years he has been around were not really of this place. Biden, on the other hand, are part of the Washington Perma establishment, who have deep and enmeshed relationships with the people who are supposedly supposed to hold them to account. And what I love most about the Washington press corps is that their corruption and saddling up to power is so naked that they just admit it for all of the world to see. It's so normal in their eyes, they can't even see that they are giving the entire game away. Now, the first example I present is so good. It's from Politico's Jake Sherman. You may not know who Sherman is. He is the author of Politico's Playbook, which is probably one of the most widely read and influential newsletters in this town. Getting your birthday in there is considered a high honor, a sign that you've made it in D.C. Well, Sherman tweeted approvingly yesterday of a new book cover. That's from former Republican House Speaker and corporate shill John Boehner. His new book recalling fondly, quote, during GOP policy retreats, Boehner would gather reporters for a happy hour where he would tell us stories, razz us, and shoot the shit about politics and life. It was terrific. If this book is anything like that, it'll be fantastic. Well, many were like, wait, what? You're openly recalling getting drunk with the former House Speaker who you purported to cover for years as a journalist? Now, once again, you can't help but love how brazen it is. And look, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I haven't done the same thing, but I don't claim to be objective. And the reason I want to highlight this for all of you is it's just a small glimpse into what happens here every single day. Much of what you're seeing before your eyes is manufactured. It's cooked up, poll tested, pre-discussed, shaped long before it comes out of a politician's mouth or in a newspaper story. That is how the sausage is actually made, over drinks between the media and the former House Speaker. Now, you'd be a fool if you think this is limited to just the media and the Republican Party. It is honestly worse on the Democratic side. And for evidence on that claim, I present to you a completely unbelievable story that has only come to light now. One of the first reporters to break the news of RBG's death was NPR Supreme Court reporter Nina Totenberg. Now, Totenberg has covered the Supreme Court for more than 30 years as a reporter. It didn't seem that weird that she had the story first, except for the fact that she had been family friends with Ginsburg for longer than she had been on the Supreme Court. And we're not just talking about occasional friends. Ginsburg literally presided over Totenberg's second wedding because the two had apparently been friends since Ginsburg was a private lawyer in practice. Now, the Post notes, quote, the Ginsburg and Totenberg families shared dinners and celebrations together over the years. Even worse, Totenberg never once disclosed her friendship with Ginsburg in the hundreds of stories that she filed reporting on the Supreme Court. In fact, the closest she came to acknowledging her friendship was only after Ginsburg had died, when we memorialized her friend for NPR, outright admitting she'd been close friends with her for decades. When she was confronted with the story, she pleaded what they always do, which is that her stories were actually better because of her friendship, and it gave her insight into what different justices were thinking behind the scenes. Now, my favorite part was actually NPR's defense of Totenberg's friendship with Ginsburg. They told the Post that Totenberg's friendship was all good because the friendship, quote, started decades before she became a Supreme Court justice and developed over the years that she covered her career and the Supreme Court. The NPR spokesman declined to say whether such reporter-source relationships are acceptable at NPR or whether NPR should disclose them. Again, this is just two brazen examples from the last 72 hours. If I go back in time, I could find so many more. This is what normal looks like in Washington. A symbiotic relationship between the media and the people that they are supposed to cover. Now, if you think this doesn't have impact on their coverage and that they treat their sources the best when they write about them, then I have a bridge to sell you. The ramifications for this really cannot be overstated. We learned exactly how toxic and cancerous this symbiotic relationship between the media and the people they cover can be during the run-up to the war in Iraq. But the truth is that it goes much, much, much farther back than that. Google the Georgetown set to see exactly how defense secretaries and national security officials cavorting with columnists agitated for the Vietnam War in the early 60s and how that worked out for all of us back then. In that way, many things about Washington never change, but they can get better. And while I understand that one of the Biden's core appeals is a return to normalcy, people should really go wide-eyed into what that means. It means a lot more about what I just laid out for all of you. It means a return to old friends, to old restaurants I haven't been to since the Obama administration. It means the same arms deals. It means the same off-the-record dinners celebrating each other's successes. It means more controlled narratives and oppositions designed to keep all of you supplicant. That is ultimately what this is all about. It's about making money, either from getting a so-called good story, from preserving your existing power so you can sell out later, and most importantly, normalizing a system where nobody around you even blinks twice at conduct that I've outlined here. Don't let them win, because this can never be normal. And isn't it amazing, Crystal, just being like, oh, we used to get together, we used to get drunk, we used to shoot the shit, it was awesome. And then Nina Totenberg, I mean, she presided over her wedding. The woman, I mean, she covers her for her job, and she's presiding over her wedding. They don't even try to hide it. A lot of people do this here, okay? I want to be clear. But some of them at least have the good sense to be like, I'm not going to like tweet about how awesome it was to get drunk with my so-called source. I mean, it's just so amazing. And no deleted, it's still up there. It's just one of these things where people here are so blind to what this is and to what it means and the ramifications of it all.
They don't even realize that there's anything wrong with it.
Yes.
I mean, that's the thing is like Jake Sherman tweeting that out. He didn't see anything wrong with it because to him and to so many people, that's just the way that it works, right? It's just completely normal operating procedure. Remember when we covered Susan Page, who's USA Today,
and presidential debate moderator.
Who's the vice presidential debate moderator. It became like a minor scandal that she had hosted a girls' night for a Trump administration official. And the only reason this came out is because the taxpayers have been charged thousands of dollars for this thing. But their defense was like, what? She does it all the time.
Yes.
Well, nothing to see here.
And she does it with Democrats too.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Kirsten Gillibrand and Andrea Mitchell and all them you like to hang out. It's in the Washington Society pages. You can go read the style section. I mean, and it's just so brazen. And this is what Biden is going to look like. Like this, I'm not saying he himself. He has never actually been all that feted by the Washington class. But the people who work for him, Ron Klain, and whoever his Treasury Secretary is, and his chief of staffs, and all these people, they are of this place.
Well, and the funny thing is, Trump is like extra brazen about these cozy relationships. So like you see it with the Fox Newses of the world where, Sean Hannity's talking to him all the time. And it's, it's like Trump propaganda hour over there, especially during the Hannity show. We played the Fox and Friends moment. Actually, I don't think we played it here, but where Trump's like, I'm going to come on every week. And they're like, oh, great. And then one of them has the sense enough to be like, maybe we should.
Somebody came into his ear and was like, you need to make
this right. But you can see in that context, because it's so extra brazen and on the surface, how just grotesque that type of relationship is. The mainstream news sources, the more liberal-leaning news sources, know enough to keep it a little bit below the radar, like the fact that Nina Totenberg knew enough to not say anything about this for years and years and years, which actually makes it even more disgusting.
Makes it worse.
I would have more respect. Look, it's a small town. Ultimately, it's like a company town. Of course, people are going to know each other. Of course, there are going to be social relationships and friendships, etc. But that's not something you should be proud of, number one. Number two, it's something that if it impacts your coverage, you should be upfront about, like have transparency. That's the part that I really have the issue with, that this is hidden for years and years and years and only comes out after the fact when it no longer really matters for your coverage.
Yeah, look, I mean, if somebody's a good friend of mine and I have to cover them, like it would be derelict of me not to be like, look, to be clear, like this person is a very good friend of mine. And you have to do that.
Look, we've said that on this show before, even as like people know our perspectives. We're not pretending to be down the middle journalists, but when we have people on that are friends, like you guys know who those those people are.
And that is very important because you need to know where somebody is coming from. So, and again, this is not small ball stuff. We're talking about NPR. How many millions of people have listened to Nina Totenberg's stories about the Supreme Court before? Do you know how many people read that Politico playbook thing? That it runs DC with so many of these other people. And so this is the type of thing where it's all hidden behind the shadows. You get very small glimpses every once in a while as to what the ramifications are. It has real impact. Vietnam, Iraq, those are just where people lost their lives. I can't tell you how many times that it will interfere in terms of legislation, who's thinking what, who is about to say what on cable news, how it's all pre-planned and the talking points and all that stuff. It's designed to keep it from you, and it shouldn't be that way. People here should know what is actually happening.
Look at the tapes that were released of Zucker and Trump.
Right, same thing.
Right? I mean, it was good for Zucker. He's the top executive running CNN. It was good. Trump was great for him, and he wanted to have a cozy friendship with him and give him a little bit of advice with him and his advisors and all the rest. Like, that is the way things operate here, and you should just be aware of that. It is perhaps most pernicious, as you're pointing out, in the national security sector, where it literally has led us into mass wars and casualty and death, and those people just continue to get promoted.
There you go. All right. Coming up, the podcast host investigating Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking ring. She previews what's to come on season 2 of Broken, Seeking Justice. That's when Rising continues.